Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to MALUKA IAS. Today we would be discussing a very important topic from art and architecture. The name of the topic is temple architecture and the sculptures that were being made at that point of time. इसके बारे में आज हम डिस्कशन करेंगे. It's a very important topic. यहाँ से कई बार क्वेश्चन आया है. Question is comparatively very simpler. The objective is that the topic should be covered in such a way ताकि आपको कोई problem ना आए and you should be in a position to solve all the questions which are coming from this portion of art and architecture. तो आज टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर एंड स्कल्पचर पे हम डिस्कशन करेंगे. When you talk about the basic form of Hindu temples which are there, they comprise of various things. For example, there is a cave-like sanctum, Garbhagriha, or for example, literally the boom house. It is basically made to house the main icon जो भगवान की मूर्ति होती है, जिस भगवान का वो मंदिर होता है, उनके लिए वो बनाया जाता है. And therefore that is the major focus of the ritual attention जितना भी rituals हमने करने हैं मंदिर में, तो उसको बोलते हैं गर्भगृह या केव लाइक सेंटम, जहाँ पे भगवान की मूर्ति रखी जाती है. सेकंड, एंट्रेंस ऑफ द टेम्पल which may be a portico or a canal hall, जैसी आप टेम्पल में एंट्री करते हैं, that incorporates a space of for a larger number of worshippers, जहाँ से जैसे आप एंटर करेंगे तो उसके बाद थोड़ा सा एक जगह होगी जहाँ पे large number of worshippers they can be for example standing for the prayers, और उस एंट्रेंस के आगे वाला जो एरिया होगा जहाँ पे हम खड़े होकर वर्शिप करेंगे, that is referred to as मंडप. Next, from the 5th century AD onwards, there were freestanding temples which were built. And they tend to have mountain-like spurs, बहुत ऊपर height तक जाते हैं, which can take the shape of a curving शिखर and a pyramidal tower. एक पिरामिड की तरह, एक टावर की तरह होगा, शिखर बना होगा, जिसको और टावर, शिखर, पिरामिड, उसको एक सिंपल में चीज में आप बोल सकते हैं विमान, that was being made. वी वुड बी कवरिंग कि नॉर्थ इंडिया में, साउथ इंडिया में सब टेम्पल्स की इमेजेस के साथ आपको पता लग जाए किसको हम शिखर बोलते हैं, किसको हम बेमान बोलते हैं. नेक्स्ट, फोर्थ इज वाहन. वाहन शब्द का मतलब है व्हीकल ऑफ द फॉर द टेम्पल्स मेन डीटी. जो भी अगर कुछ रथ बना हुआ है या कुछ भी है जो व्हीकल है टेम्पल के मेन डीटी का, वो डीटी जिसकी इमेज, जिसकी मूर्ति गर्भगृह में पड़ी है, उसको बोलते हैं वाहन. अलॉन्ग विद अ स्टैंडिंग पिलर और द ध्वज, पिलर्स भी होंगे और जिसको हम बोलते हैं ध्वज, दैट इज प्लेस्ड एक्सियली बिफोर द सेंटम. द ट्रू ब्रॉड ऑर्डर्स जो कंट्री में डेवलप हुए हैं, दैट इज नगरा स्टाइल, दैट इज देयर इन द नॉर्थ, और साउथ में जो टेम्पल बनते हैं उनको द्रविड़ा स्टाइल बोलते हैं. एट टाइम्स और बीच में फॉर एग्जांपल वेसारा स्टाइल ऑफ टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर वाज आल्सो देयर. नगरा और द्रविड़ा के मिक्सचर के फीचर में जो एक ऑलमोस्ट सेंट्रल इंडिया जो उसके आसपास वाले रीजन में जो इमर्ज हुआ है, डेक्कन रीजन और उसके थोड़ा साउथ में, दैट इज नोन एज वेसारा स्टाइल ऑफ टेम्पल आर्किटेक्चर. As temples grew, they more and more became complex. More surface was created for sculpture, जैसे अलग अलग sculptures थी, more surface was taken for it through additive geometry, for example by adding more and more rhythmic projecting, asymmetrical walls और niches, multiple things were added. वो हम करेंगे ताकि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा मूर्तियों को हम ऐड कर सके भगवान की इमेजेस को. Next is sculpture, iconography and ornamentation. The study of the images of the deities are basically known as iconography. River goddesses are usually found on the entrance of the temple, basically in of North India term Garbhagriha पे. River goddesses गंगा और यमुना को दिखाया जा रहा है. ये नॉर्थ इंडिया का फीचर है. और साउथ इंडिया की जब बात है तो वहाँ पे द्वारपाल, जिसको बोलते हैं डोर कीपर, they are usually found basically on the gateways और गोपुरम्स, जो बड़े बड़े गेट में आगे टावर से बने होते हैं उसको गोपुरम्स बोलते हैं. ऐसे करके वो आएगा आगे सब कुछ. Next are the Mithunas. They are basically the erotic images. Navgraha means the nine auspicious planets. Yakshas are also placed basically at the entrance to guard them. The deities of the directions, that is Ashtadikpalas, face of the eight key directions, were basically there on the outer walls of the centum, and also on the outer wall of the temple also. There they have been beautifully depicted. Along with all these things, what becomes important is the subsidiary shrines. They're basically around the main temple, are dedicated to the family or incarnation of the main deities. They're basically a subsidy shrine होगी, उसके साथ ही कुछ subsidy shrine होगा जो वहाँ पे place किया जाएगा. It's very very important that you cover all these things. आपको पता होना चाहिए कि simple तरीके में वो क्या क्या होता है और क्या नहीं होता है. Next is Nagara or North Indian temple style that is there. आप एक सिंपल भाषा में देखिए. नगरा स्टाइल, इसको इस चीज़ को जो टेम्पल के थोड़ा आगे बना हुआ है स्टेयर केस वाला, उसको बोलते हैं पिट्ठा. यहाँ पे भगवान की मूर्ति रखी है, उसको बोलते हैं गर्भगृह. फॉर एग्जाम्पल यहाँ पे शिखर, इस चीज़ को हम बोलते हैं शिखर. इस चीज़ को बोलते हैं अमलका. एंड देन ऊपर विल बी कलश. तो दीज आर द important things that you should know in the Nagara style. Unlike in the South India, it does not usually have elaborate boundary walls or gateways. Well, the earliest temples, when you talk about it, had just one tower. शुरुआत में सिर्फ एक ही टावर होता था, और the शिखर. Later on, the temple had several towers. गर्भगृह is directly located. गर्भगृह कहाँ पे होगा? जहाँ पे tallest tower है उसके नीचे. There are many subdivisions of the Nagara style depending upon the shape of the शिखर. काफ़ी जैसे अलग अलग शिखरास बनने लगे थे, सब डिविजन होने लगी थी. शिखरा इज बेसिकली स्क्वायर एट द बेस and whose walls they curve or they basically slope inwards to a point on the top. And नीचे से कैसे होगा? It will be square at a base and the walls will be curving or sloping inwards यहाँ से at the pointing towards the top. ऐसे ऐसे करके जाता रहेगा ऊपर से धीरे धीरे, as you can see in the image also. Point to the top and is called a latina or the Rekha Prasad type of a shikhar that is there. Second major type of architecture is Thamsana. Thamsana building tend to be broad and shorter than the Latina ones. उससे थोड़ा सा आसपास वाली जो बिल्डिंग होगी comparatively वो छोटी होंगी, जैसे आप इमेज में देख सकते हैं. Their roofs are basically composed of several slabs that gently rise to a single point over the center of the building. Unlike the Latina ones, which basically look like sharply rising tall towers, ये comparatively कम tall होंगे. The roofs of the Famsana, जो साथ वाली और buildings होंगी, they do not curve inwards. Instead, they slope upwards on a straight incline. वो inward इतना नहीं होगा, वो almost upward on a straight incline की तरह होगा. In North India, the temples of the Famsana style is basically used for the mandap, while the main Garbhagriha is basically housed in the Latina building. Later on, with the passage of time, the Latina buildings they basically grew complex, and instead of appearing on a single tall tower, the temple begins basically to support the smaller towers also, which were therefore clustered like mountain peaks. The tallest one being in the center और साथ में फिर आगे दूसरे होंगे. The third main type of subtype of the Nagara building is Vallavi type. They are basically the rectangular buildings with a roof that will be rising into a vaulted chamber. That is what is called a rectangular building. Sun Temple at Konark has been built like this. Beautiful picture. The edge of this vaulted chamber is basically rounded, like a bamboo or a wooden wagon that have been drawn by a bullock of the ancient type. Bullocks have been made. They are therefore usually called as a wagon vaulted building. ऐसा लग रहा है कि bullocks उसको चला रहे हैं. Wagon wheels are basically being made. The Buddhist rock cut Chaitya cave are basically shaped as long halls, which they basically tend to curve back. नेक्स्ट सेंट्रल इंडिया. सेंट्रल इंडिया कहाँ कहाँ पे, फॉर एग्जांपल यूपी, मध्य प्रदेश, राजस्थान में आपको देखने को मिलती है बिल्डिंग्स. दे आर बेसिकली मेड ऑफ द सैंडस्टोन. Oldest surviving temple basically belongs to the Gupta period that was made in Madhya Pradesh, and they have relatively modest looking shrines which are there, and each having the four pillar that will be supporting the small mandap, which is basically looking something like a simple square porch. The temples which are basically made at Udayagiri on the outskirts of Vidisha is basically a large Hindu complex of the cave shrine. Udayagiri caves में जो मिले हैं. सांची में it was basically a Buddhist site जो हमने पहले भी किया हुआ है. The patrons and donors which are there at Deogarh are unknown कि किसने दिया है. The building was basically established in the 6th century. Dasavatara Vishnu temple at Deogarh, very very important, and Sheshasyan Vishnu Dasavatara temple at Deogarh, very beautifully depicted. The temple is in Panchayatan style, very very important, already आ चुका है, where the main building is basically on a rectangular plinth with four smaller subsidiary shrines at the corner, making it a total of 5 shrines. Therefore Panchayatana style, therefore नाम वहाँ से बोलता है, very very important. It is a classical Negara style temple. पंचीतान टेम्पल में क्लासिकल नेगरा स्टाइल टेम्पल बनाया गया ये दशवतेश्वर टेम्पल. This west facing temple has a basically grand doorway with the standing sculptures would be there of the female figures representing Ganga on the left side and Yamuna on the right side. Ganga and Yamuna, जैसे आपको पहले बताया था, it is the feature of the northern Indian style. It is a Vishnu temple depicted to Lord Vishnu and awesome. The 3 main reliefs of Vishnu basically on the temple wall can be seen. Shesh Asyan on basically on the south, Nar Narayan depiction है east में, और गजेंद्र मोक्षा is basically on the west. किस तरीके से विष्णु भगवान को present किया गया है वहाँ पे. Khajuraho temples are basically those temples which were made in the 10th century. Approximately 400 साल के बाद after the temple of Deogarh that was being made. Lakshman temple is basically dedicated to Vishnu. Is the grandest temple of Khajuraho. 954 AD में बनाया गया. चंडेला किंग दंगा या डांगा किंग का नाम था, इम्पोर्टेंट है बहुत ज़्यादा. The 4 smaller temples are basically there in the corners, are therefore like the walls that are there that are basically depicted temples, and all the towers or the shikhar, they rise high upwards like a curved pyramidal fashion. Emphasizing on there would be that temple's vertical thrust would be there, ending with a horizontal flute disc called as amalak, topped with kalash or vase, जैसे आपको पिक्चर में पहले दिखाया था. द क्राउनिंग एलिमेंट जो हमने पहले भी किया हुआ है, दैट इज अमालक एंड कलश, आर टू बेसिकली फाउंड ऑन ऑलमोस्ट ऑल द नगर स्टाइल टेम्पल्स. आपको दोबारा दिखाते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल दिस इज अमालक and this is Kalash. Next thing that is important is the temples also has a projecting balconies or verandas. Balcony है भी है और verandas भी है. The Khajuraho temples which are there are also known for the extensive erotic sculptures. Erotic sculptures are being made. Many Hindu temples feature, for example, Methun, that is Methun sculptures are being made considered auspicious. Embracing couple has been there. Very important features are, for example, they are almost in full relief, cut away from the surrounding stone that was there, with a sharp nose and a prominent chin, and long slanting eyes and eyebrows have been depicted. Other temples which are there at Khajuraho is Kandaria Mahadev Temple, dedicated to Lord Shiv. There are also some Jain temples which are there as well, as for example Chausanath Yogini Temple, which is of great interest. Predating the 10th century, this is a temple of a small and a square shrine that has been there, each dedicated to Devis or goddesses, which are associated with the rise of the Tantric worship which took place in 7th century. This is Vishwanath Temple, आप देख सकते हैं at Khajuraho. Dance class Lakshman Temple that you can see at Khajuraho. Sun temples at Modera in Gujarat has been seen. Beautiful depiction has been made. Now the West India, the temples which are there. For example, Gujarat, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. Sandstone was commonly used. A grey to black basalt can also be seen. Basically in some of the 10th to 12th century sculptures which are being made. Most importantly, for example, the white soapstone was used. 10th to 12th century Jain temple was made in Mount Abu, very important. In 15th century, the temple was basically made at Ranakpur. Then, while the patronage is still being debated कि किसने patronage किया है, the Sun Temple that is Modera, very very important, बहुत important आपको याद रखना पड़ेगा, is built by Raja Bhimdev I of Solanki dynasty. Important. Sun Temple at Modera by Solanki dynasty के king थे Bhimdev I. The Solankis were basically a branch of the later Chalukyas. Massive rectangular swept tank that is Surya Kund has been made. Hundreds and 8 miniature shrines are also being carved out. It is basically a huge ornamental arch tower led to one of the Sabha assembly hall में है. Influence of the wooden carving tradition of the Gujarat can also be depicted over here. Next is the temples which were there in the eastern part of the country, basically northeast में, Bengal में या उड़ीसा में. The main medium of construction was basically terracotta, and also the molding plagues which depicted the Buddhist and the Hindu deities in Bengal. For example, the temples which were there in Assam. 6th century sculpted door frame from the Parvatiya near Tezpur, and another from Rangagora tea estate in Tinsukia has been there and witnessed the import of the Gupta idioms into that region. Later on, with the passage of time, a home style developed in and around Guwahati. Kamakhya temple, that is basically a Shakti Peeth, is dedicated to goddesses Kamakhya and was built later on in the 17th century. A picture of the temple that is Siv Sagar in Assam. Next is Bengal. Temples were basically built from 9th to 11th century in Bengal Bihar region and therefore is basically known as the Pala style. While the style of those which were approximately mid 11th century or उसके बाद बने mid 13th century, that is known as Sena style, after the, for example, is named after the Sena kings which were made. The temples, they are basically of that of the region, are basically to express the local Vanga style which are there. Bengali style, Vanga style जिसको बाद में देखने को मिलता है. The 9th century Siddheshwar Mahadev temple was basically built in Barakar in the Burdwan district. It is comparatively similar to the temples that were basically developed in the region of Odisha. So similarities has been there also seen. Example of the Nagara to subtype, Nagara subtype has been seen, basically North India type. Many vernacular local language building on vernacular building tradition was also seen at Bengal region. The example can be known from the fact that shape of the carving or the sloping side of the bamboo roof of a comparatively of a Bengali hut. Example of these can be Vishnupur, Bankura, Burdwan, and Birhum of the 17th century. Terracotta style can be known over here. Terracotta temple at Vishnupur can be seen. Odisha, the main architecture feature are basically three. Rekhapida is one of them, Pedadeol is another, and Khakra is a third one that is their main architecture feature that are basically found in Odisha. Most of the sites are basically in Kalinga that they are found. The temple substyle is within the Nagara order that has been there. The Shikhra called the Dyul in Odisha is basically a vertical almost until the top. पूरा ही vertical है top तक. और वहाँ पे top में जाके क्या होगा? It will be suddenly taking a turn or a curve inside inwards. Dyura or Dyuls are basically preceded by the mandap. वहाँ पे मंडप होगा basically called Jagmohana in Odisha. The ground plan for the main temple is almost always square. The ground plane कैसा होगा? Square होगा. In the upper reaches of its superstructure, therefore becomes circular. ऊपर से circular होगा, and in the crowning mastak, as you can see, Sun Temple at Konark. ऐसे लग रहा है व्हील चला रहा है, रथ चल रहा है, that has been made. यहाँ पे स्क्वायर टाइप सा बना होगा and then it would sudden turn would be taken. For example, Jagannath Temple Puri. एक ऑलमोस्ट ऐसे जा रहा है and then the turn has been taken. This makes, for example, the spire nearly cylindrical in appearance. Cylindrical की तरह देखने को मिलेगा. The Odisha temple have a boundary walls also. The Sun Temple that was built at Konark around 1240 AD. The vast complex is within basically the quadrilateral percent of which the Jagmohan or the dance pavilion mandap has been survived till of now. The 12 pair of wheels that are basically being sculpted with spokes and hubs has also been there, representing the chariot wheel of the sun god that has been there, who is basically riding the chariot driven by 8 horses. Next is the hills. कहाँ कहाँ पे hilly region पे जो temples बने हुए हैं. The hills of the Kumayu region, the hills of Garhwal region, the hills of basically Himachal and the Kashmir region जहाँ जहाँ पे temples बने हैं. The Kashmir proximity is comparatively to prominent Gandhara sites have been there. उनके साथ proximity काफ़ी ज़्यादा देखने को मिलती है. For example, Takshila, Peshawar and the northwest 20 province etc. Therefore, the strong Gandhara influence can be known at this region. This basically began as a mix of Gupta and post-Gupta tradition that were basically brought to it from the Sarnath, Mathura, and even in the center of the Gujarat and Bengal. Basically, what was happening was that the Brahmin Pandits and the Buddhist monk they frequently traveled to the regions of Kashmir and to other areas also, Nalanda, Banaras, Kanchipuram, and therefore the result was that the both Hindu and the Buddhist tradition they began to intermingle in these areas, and therefore the Garbhagriha and the Shikra are made basically in Reik Prashad or the Latna style. The mandap is basically an older form of the wooden architecture, and sometimes the temple itself takes on the pagoda shape. The Karkota period of Kashmir, basically the temple was built, Pandrethan temple that was built in the 8th and the 9th century. The tradition that was basically kept that was that of the water tank. वाटर टैंक का ट्रेडिशन वहाँ पे देखने को मिलता है. That would be there attached to the shrines. The temples of basically Hindu religion, possibly dedicated to Lord Shiv. Basically, the temple is moderately ornamental. The rows of the temples, basically at the base, and decorated doorways are only the embellishments on the shrines. और कुछ ज़्यादा decorations नहीं होगी. The images of Mahishura Mardini and Narsimha are basically there at the Lakshmi Devi temple that is there. The yellow and the yellow color that is being depicted on the images is possibly due to the alloys of zinc and copper जिसकी वजह से yellow color बन चुका है. Then basically these temples were there which were built during the reign of the Meru Burman, one of the important king of the region of Kashmir that was there in the 7th century. Meru Burman king who was there. The next is Dravida or the South Indian temple architecture. Unlike the Negara style, the Dravida temple is basically enclosed within a compound wall. There would be compound wall that would be enclosing it. The front wall basically has an entrance gateway in the center which is known as Gopuram. देखिए यहाँ पे entrance gateway होगा, एक बड़ा सा गेट बना हुआ जिसको गोपुरम बोलते हैं. The shape of the main temple tower basically known as Viman, ये विमान हो गया मेन टेम्पल टावर के लिए, is like a stepped pyramid, स्टेप की तरह बना होगा ऐसे ऐसे करके. That rises up geometrically rather than curve. यहाँ पे geometrically rise करेगा और नॉर्थ इंडिया में क्या होता है, it was curving शिखर that was there. यहाँ पे steps होगा. In the South Indian, the word shikara is used mainly for the crowning element at the top of the temple. The crowning element will be a shikara that would be there, which is basically like a small stupika or octagonal cupola that was there. That is equivalent to a malak and kalash of the North Indian style. The sculptures of the fierce Dwarpal would be there. At doorkeepers भी होंगे, Dwarpal भी होंगे बने हुए. It's very common that there would be large water reservoirs or a temple tank that would be there. यहाँ पे जहाँ पे लोग इकट्ठे होंगे वो है मंडप, गर्भगृह जहाँ पे भगवान की मूर्ति होगी, गर्भगृह के ऊपर यहाँ पे विमान और शिखर होगा वहाँ पे. There would be subsidiary shrines which would also be there. They are either incorporated within the main temple or located at a distinct or a separate shrine वहाँ पे अलग से होगा. The North India idea जो है वहाँ पे multiple शिखर्स rising together as a cluster was not popular in South India. जहाँ हमने North India में टाइप पे देखे थे multiple शिखर, एक बड़ा शिखर है और साथ में छोटे छोटे मिलेंगे, वो नहीं है. Srirang Temple basically at Trichurapalli has 7 concentric rectangular enclosure walls, each with a gopuram. हर बेक में एक entry gateway होगा. The outermost is the newest, while जो भी अंदर होगा that is housing the गर्भगृह that will be the oldest. And multiple temples were being made, for example Kanchipuram Temple, Thanjavur Temple or Tanjore Temple, the temple which was there at Madurai, etc. They are very important temples which were constructed basically from the 8th century to the 12th century जब temple construction हो रहा था. Similar to the subdivision, there are subdivisions also, for example, of the Dravida style of temple. There are 5 different shapes which you happen to see, for example, square, basically called kutta, and also katur rasra that is known, or rectangular shape it can be, or elliptical shape called as gaj prashta, or the elephant back that would be that circular or a vritya, and there can be an octagonal shape also that can basically be known as ashtasara. Asht means 8, octagonal. Normally speaking, the plan of the temple and the shape of the viman are basically conditioned by the iconographic nature of the deity that has been there. When you talk about the Pallava style, the temple basically Andhra region में हुआ 12th 2nd century से. The powerful kings which were there, they spread their empire to various other parts of the subcontinent also, and वहाँ पे भी temple building शुरू हो गई. When you talk about the early buildings, it was basically the rock cut. Later on, various it was the structural were also there. Initially phase में जो शुरू हुआ, that was basically Mahendra Varman I, a contemporary of Cholakyan king Pulakesin II of Karnataka. Then Narasimha Varman I, also known as Mamla, also ascended the Pallava throne in 640, and therefore the expansion of the temple and the empire took place. And the style that was constructed at his time works at Mahabalipuram is basically known as Mamalapuram style. The shore temple at Mahabalipuram, very very important, that was built during the time of Narasimhavarman II, or also known as Rajasimha, is of very great importance. There are three shrines that are there, two of Shiv, one facing east, another facing the west, another would be dedicated to Lord Vishnu in the middle, who is basically shown as Ananta Shayan. There is also evidence of the water tank that are being made as early as example of the gopurams that are there and several other images which are being made. The sculptures are basically of the bull, of Nandi and Shiva's mount, lines of the wall temples, etc. They are beautifully being carved out. The magnificent temple that is there of Lord Shiva of Thanjavur, or Brihadeshwara or Rajarajeshwara temple, very very important temple that has been built around 1009 AD by the Chola king Rajaraja. It is the temple that is the largest and tallest of all the temples that are there in India. Very very important. Rajarajeshwara or Brihadeshwara temple at Thanjavur, that was built in 1009 AD by the Chola king Rajendra Chola. When you talk about the Chola's temple pyramidal multi-storied Viman, thus Viman will be multi-storied. That will be depicting how powerful the king is. जितना ऊंचा विमान होगा, जितना बड़ा temple होगा, that will be depicting the power of the king. And those pyramidal multi-storied Viman is basically topped by a monolithic shikhar, which is an octagonal shaped shikhar hai, octagonal dome shaped stupika. It is the first time that two large gopurams, that is gateway tower, with an elaborated sculptural programs that were basically conceived over here. The huge Nandi basically figures dots the corner of the shikhar that is being beautifully depicted. The main deity of the temple is Lord Shiv, who is basically shown with a huge lingam set in a two-storied centum that has been presented over here. Therefore, it is very important that you should be knowing comprehensively about this. इतना है, अगर क्वेश्चन पूछना हुआ तो इतने से ही पूछ लेंगे वो क्वेश्चन. Next is the architecture that was developed in the Deccan region, either Nagara or the Dravida. It was basically a hybridized style that was there, hybrid किया गया था, इन दोनों के features को mix किया गया था. That is basically known as the Vaisara style, which developed in 750 AD. The early Western Cholakya basically they controlled the Deccan region, and that was taken up by Rashtrakutas. The greatest achievement of the architecture is basically the Kailashnath temple that was built at Ellora. Kailashnath temple was built at Ellora. It is basically a complete Dravida building with a Nandi shrine, as the temple is dedicated to Lord Shiv. The Gopuram, जैसे गेटवे की तरह, the surrounding cluster, subsidiary shrines, a staircase, all of these are this beautifully being depicted. And Viman rising to 30 meter. One portion of the monolithic hill is basically carved patiently to build the Kailashnath temple. Pulakesin I, who was basically the Western Chalukyan king, he secured the land around Badami for this development. The early Chalukyan activity also took the form of the rock cut caves which were there. और बाद में क्या हुआ? It was the structural temples which were being built. The Ravan Pahadi cave that has been there depicted. The Ravan Pahadi cave at Ahol is known for its distinctive sculptural style. The most important sculptures are the Natraj, basically being surrounded by larger than life size depiction of the Sapta Matrikas, three to Lord Shiv and four Shiv's left and four on his right. The figures which were basically made are characterized by graceful and slim bodies which would be there, and oval faces topped, and there would be tall cylindrical crowns that would be shown. Basically, and the persons are there wearing dhoti marked with line fine pleating that would be depicted. They are basically distinctly different from the other style. For example, the Deccan style or the Vakataka style that has been depicted. The Chalakyan temple at Patadakal, which is important, that was built during the time of Vikramaditya II, by his queen Lok Mahadevi. That shows a complete knowledge of the Pallava style of that building that was there at Kanchipuram as a corollary to Mahabalipuram. The eastern Chalakya temple that was there, like the Mahakuta or the Swarga Brahma temple at Alampuram, they show a great assimilation of various other northern styles, for example, from Odisha or from Rajasthan. The Durga temple has been built at Ahol, is very, very important. It is a reminiscent of the Buddhist Chaitya hall that was depicted. The Ladkhan temple at Ahol is also being inspired by the wooden roof temples of the hills, except that it is basically constructed out of the stone. Later on, the Hoysalas of Karnataka, they grew into prominence in basically in the southern part of the country. Next, the temples which are there at Belur, Helavid, and Somnathpuram that was constructed. They grew extremely complex with many projecting angles emerging from the previously straightforward square temple. पहले मोस्टली इट वाज अ स्क्वायर टेम्पल दैट वाज बिल्ट, और यहाँ पे क्या होगा, एंगल्स की तरह अलग अलग से इमर्ज होंगे स्टार की तरह. फॉर एग्जांपल ऐसे ऐसे कोने बन जाएंगे, और पहले नॉर्मली एक स्क्वायर होता था. That the plan of those temples basically look like a star, and therefore it is known as a stellate plan. Basically made of the soft stone, which is relatively comparatively soapstone, जो soft stone होता है. Haleiwa Temple, also known as Lord of Hoysalas at Halabid in Karnataka, is very important because it was basically built in a dark schist stone. The Hoysala Temple are sometimes also called as Vesara or hybrid, and their unique style seem basically neither completely Dravid or Nahi Nagara style hai. They're basically easily distinguishable from the medieval temples because of their star-like ground plans, and that is carvings would be comparatively decorative. Dedicated to Lord Shiv as Nataraj, the Haleiwa Temple is basically a double building with a large stone from the mandap, and also to facilitate music and dance also, so that can be there. Nataraj that can be depicted at Halabit. It was founded in 1936. Vijayanagar literally means the city of victory. Also attracted number of other people who came from outside, for example, Italian, Niccolo di Conti, Portuguese, Domenico Pace, Nunes, and Barbosa, and also the Afghan Abdul Razak, who has left a good account of the city. The Vijayanagara census basically depict the centuries-old Dravida style architecture with iconic images that are being made. तो फ्रेंड्स अभी इस सेक्शन में we would be completing these. We have completed this somewhat of the temple architecture in the first part of this video. In the second part, the next remaining chapter would be completed in the part 2. And friends, do cover the finer points of Nagara and Dravida style and make it sure that the question जो भी आएंगे वो comparatively simple होंगे. बहुत complicated questions GS में नहीं आते. तो therefore try to cover these temple architecture and sculpture और फिर आगे next part 2 में आगे move करेंगे. Thank you very much.